I Love CVille Show. Please forgive the late start today on a 70-degree Tuesday afternoon in downtown Charlottesville. A lot we're going to cover on the show, folks. Get this. Are you ready for this? This is what caught my attention today. By now you know, if you watch the show, the UVA health system is an embattled brand. It's a brand and a health system that is in a perceived and actual turmoil. And the CEO of the health system resigned. His name is Dr. Craig Kent. And he resigned in a clandestine, after-hours, unexpected fashion. Law firm presents an investigative report to the Glenn Youngkin-controlled UVA Board of Visitors. And in this investigative report, which we have still not seen, which we probably will not see, as soon as that report is presented to the Board of Visitors, the CEO, Craig Kent, resigns. Since his resignation, another heavy hitter, and Judah's going to give the who, what, when, where, why here in a matter of moments, with UVA Health has offered his unexpected resignation. He resigns because he wants to back Craig Kent, and he says, that's it, I'm out of here. How you treated Craig Kent, I'm hitting the road, Jack. He hasn't even read the investigative report from the law firm, yet he offers his resignation. Now we have the dean of the medical school. There's a phony resignation letter that's been circulated. And this phony resignation letter that's been circulated, that's been picked up by the media, is so true to its roots that folks genuinely initially think the phony resignation letter is real. Then UVA has to issue a statement. You need to ignore the resignation letter that is circulating about the UVA School of Medicine dean. It's a hoax, and while it looks very real, Dr. Melina Kibbe is in fact not resigning. This is a cacophony of comedy. This is a cornucopia of what the hell is going on. You have a CEO quitting at an after-hours clandestine meeting in unexpected fashion. You have a dean who many think has resigned, but in fact says the letter, the resignation letter, in fact proves to be a hoax or a phony. And now we're just left scratching our heads, wondering what is going on with the health system, an outfit that generates billions of dollars in revenue for the University of Virginia. I want to talk about dysfunction and resignation and phony letters today on the I Love CVille Show. I want to talk diversity, equity, and inclusion and how it applies to the University of Virginia. Are we truly now a DEI-free school here in Charlottesville? I want to talk Mudhouse Coffee closing on 10th Street. This is next to Guajiros. I want to talk the city funding a low-barrier shelter today on Cherry Avenue. We still don't have an operator. I'm not sure how significant this news is, but we'll talk about it. I want to talk Carla Williams writing a letter to donors and to alumni saying, hey, the transfer portal period begins on the 24th of March and it runs about a month. We're going to have a head coach hired and in position to lead the men's basketball program before the portal period expires. Is that Ryan Odom? Right now, a lot of people are saying it is, including Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe, who said that was the favorite right now on the Jerry and Jerry show. There will be no I Love CVille show tomorrow. That's a programming note. And on Thursday, we will interview, ladies and gentlemen, the founder of Coco's Adventure Factory. His name is Dr. Daniel Halpert, who I've been corresponding with this morning. Judah Wickhauer is behind the camera, the director and producer of the program. Judah Wickhauer, studio camera, then a two-shot. As I ask you the same question I ask you to start every single show, which headline do you find most intriguing and why? Judah Wickhauer.
I'm most interested in this crazy phony letter going around. This is just wild, and you're right, it's a little bit childish.
It reminds me of high school. It reminds me of high school when we used to pass letters back and forth, notes back and forth to our crushes. I'd write a letter. It'd have a box or two. Do you like me? Check yes or no. I would pass it to Kenny Allen. Kenny Allen would pass it to Jen Sherling. Jen Sherling would pass it to Lauren, and Lauren would have to check, do you like me? Yes or no, and then pass the letter back to me. Sometimes those notes would get circulated in Algebra 2 trig class with Mr. Gillespie leading the classroom, and the A squared, B squared, C squared, the Pythagorean theorem curriculum of the day, and a note would get passed to somebody in the classroom from allegedly me asking if I liked them, when in fact I was not the author of that note. That's what's going on here. The dean of the medical school has a letter circulated. It's been circulated, and this letter was so true to form that the media needed a statement released by the University of Virginia acknowledging that the letter was in fact a hoax. Dr. Mitch Rosner, the interim head of the hospital, who is in a stopgap role since Craig Kent resigned in February, he legitimately on Monday said this was a hoax. You have the dean of the medical school, an outfit that does billions and billions and billions, billions with a B, in gross revenue every year. A letter that is so true to form that you have the Board of Visitors. You have a joint statement from UVA Provost Bree Gertler, the interim. Look at the people that have issued this statement here at the University of Virginia. The interim CEO of UVA Health, the interim head of UVA Health is Mitch Rosner. The interim provost is Bree Gertler. They both interim had to issue a statement saying this letter was phony, Judah.
There's also a video.
A video so true to form that, I mean, who is behind this?
I don't even know what the video is comprised of. It's obviously not going to be actually Kibbe. I mean, that goes without saying.
Can you imagine a world where we're in that there's such disdain for leadership that someone or some group or some entity is authoring a phony letter and phony video saying that the dean has resigned? Mm-hmm. I mean, and how do you even make a phony video out of curiosity?
I'm curious about that as well.
Like, how do you make a phony
strange
resignation video?
And the letter apparently says, I deeply appreciate everyone who takes the time to watch it. I want to find this video.
Who's got the receipts? Who's got the video that they can send to Judah and I? We have a copy of the letter. I want to see the video. Mm-hmm. I have the phony hoax letter. I want to see the phony hoax video. John Blair asked the question, at what point does UVA start to do some real damage to its brand? He says, I swear the past 3 to 4 years have been stacked with controversy. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Stacked with controversy. And this is all on the heels of the investigative report with the triple murder of the Virginia football players not being released.
Yeah.
The mother of one of the football players saying, just tell me what happened to my kid. Who else is going to get stuck in this brand suicide and this quicksand of collateral damage? And why have we not heard from Kibbe? Why has she not made an official statement? Right now, we have no official statement from the dean of the medical school, despite a hoax letter about her, despite a hoax video about her, and despite more than 100 of her team members, her subordinates, asking or demanding her resignation. And we have heard nothing from her of late. Do you find that intriguing? Or would you say Time will kill the story. Leave it alone. Ignore it. Ignore it. Ignore it. Bill McChesney says this is the world of AI we live in.
Could be.
Are you surprised? No statement.
I'm guessing that that's the same advice that she's getting from President Ryan. Keep your head down. Let this blow over. I mean, that seemed to be
Makes
his...
the parallel to Jim Ryan. I like that. His MO.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. The difference is with Jim Ryan, I think his time is winding down in Charlottesville.
Could be.
I don't think Kibby's time is winding down.
Okay.
At least from her personal runway and her personal choice. Media is reporting about a phony and hoax letter. Be curious to hear from the person herself about this bamboozling of commentary that is out there on the interwebs. Very interesting. Now, we didn't have a chance to get to this yesterday. First we got to highlight the second individual that's resigned. You got the who, what, when, where, why in front of us here. Another surprise resignation. What makes this resignation so surprising, Judah, is this is a man who's resigning despite reading the investigative report from the third party, from the law firm. Do you want to set the table for us on this?
Despite reading?
He has not read it.
Right.
Has not read it. Set the table for us.
Yeah, this is this is a member of the board, the UVA Health System Board, Thomas Scully. He is a prominent healthcare attorney, and he has recently resigned from the board, saying that there's no basis for corrective action. He's basically saying that despite having not read the
he's resigning in
report,
protest to how Craig Kent was treated. Mm-hmm. That's what he's just saying right there.
Calling them toxic forces that, in his view, led physicians and faculty members to accuse Kent in the first place.
Why offer your resignation here?
Especially if you haven't even, Scully, who acknowledges he was not privy to the investigation, blames. I don't even know why he's making commentary if he hasn't seen the report. I've read elsewhere that UVA officials agreed that what was in the report necessitated Kent's resignation, but then they also say that it doesn't necessitate doing anything else in terms of changing practices. The whole situation is odd. And yeah, to have this guy retire and go on what seems like a long random tirade about the UVA health system, despite not seeing anything from, he touches on everything from the individual lawyers who did the report, to the firm that did the report, to, it's just, he's got a lot to say about a report that he hasn't seen.
The interesting aspect of what Scully offered during his resignation, he highlighted that there is an extremely talented Board of Visitors member that's orchestrating all of this behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Is that extremely talented Board of Visitors member that's orchestrating all this almost as if they are a puppeteer? Are we to believe that is Burt Ellis, the co-founder of the Jefferson Council, the Atlanta businessman who was appointed to the board by Glenn Youngkin? Do we believe it's Burt Ellis?
Is there something that leads you to believe it's him?
Burt Ellis, in previous Board of Visitors meeting, has highlighted the fact that we need to cut spending, that he does not recognize the University of Virginia, that it needs to return to its former glory of Thomas Jefferson pedestaled single sanction honor code, and less protest, pomp, and circumstance, and more learning, more tradition, more conservatism. That's what he's alluded to in past BOV meetings. Viewers and listeners, do you think the talented Board of Visitors member that is orchestrating all of this, as Scully, who just resigned, as he has said, is Burt Ellis? Very curious of your thoughts. My instinct says it is. That's what my instinct is. What are your thoughts, viewers and listeners? Judah, I want to give some love to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. 60 consecutive years in business, Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, online on East High Street, online on charlottesvillesanitarysupply.com, in person on East High Street. John Vermillion, Andrew Vermillion, the Vermillion family, 3 generations strong. Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, guys. What are your thoughts on this? Very curious. And all of this is happening at the same time that the University of Virginia is under investigation for anti-Semitic discrimination and harassment. Mm-hmm. The U.S. Department of Education, Bill McChesney, I saw that as well. Judah brought this to our attention today. The U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights sent a letter. Judah, you saw that, right?
Yeah.
To the University of Virginia, amongst other universities, 60 in total.
Listed UVA among 60 colleges that received letters from the department's Office for Civil Rights, urging them to comply with the Civil Rights Act and protect Jewish students.
Columbia University is on there. Cornell University is on there. George Mason is on there. Johns Hopkins is on there. Ohio State University is on there. Princeton is on there. Stanford University is on there. University of California, Davis, UCal San Diego, all the UCals are on there. I mean, North Carolina, Chapel Hill is on there. USC, Southern California is on there. And the one right, Yale University is on there. And UVA right here is on there. Judah, what's going on here?
I mean, it's pretty hard to straddle this fence, because you can't allow people shouting support for a terrorist organization to do what they want to do and also protect the people that they want to destroy. It doesn't work.
What's the fine line on college campuses and college grounds between free speech and racism and anti-Semitism?
I think the fine line in this case is actually protecting students. I mean, we've heard stories, mostly anecdotal, but we've seen them in the newspapers, of Jewish students who are I haven't heard too many of them getting harmed, but we've heard of harassment. We've seen students talking about the fact that they're afraid to wear anything that might identify them, in terms of, like yarmulkes, whatever else, Stars of David, for fear of reprisal from other students on campus. And if you're not going to take them seriously when they bring these issues to light, and if you're not going to protect them, then you're taking the other side.
Judah Wickhauer
and the other side is terrorists.
Judah Wickhauer is on point today.
In many cases.
I shared the link on my personal Facebook page. William McChesney has shared it as well in the comment section on my personal Facebook page. I'm going to share the link, ladies and gentlemen, on my Twitter account where this show is airing upon. Please read this. I'm sharing the link. I'm going to share the link in the comment section of my personal LinkedIn. I'm sharing the link on I Love CVille Facebook, the I Love CVille group. I'll share it on YouTube right now. You should read this. Came out yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. This is a concerning turn of events where the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights sends a letter to 60 universities, including the University of Virginia. The University of Virginia is under investigation for anti-Semitic discrimination and harassment. The letter warns of potential enforcement actions if institutions do not fulfill their obligations under Civil Rights Act to protect Jewish students on campus.
Yeah.
Judah, I'm going to try to outline what's happening here, okay? We have the CEO of the health system resigning at an after-hours clandestine Board of Visitors meeting in surprising fashion.
Over a report that they refused to release.
Over a report that they refused to release, over a report done by an independent third-party law firm, a report that has the investigative results on whether the health system at the University of Virginia used fraudulent methods to bill patients, to milk average Joes and average Sallys out of the money, their own money, when it pertains to patient care. A report that offers investigative insight on whether bullying and cronyism and backroom dealing and just basically white-collar racketeering was done at the University of Virginia, was if medical chart changing to maintain regional and national performance standards was done. Really, the lighthouse or the insight of if the nastiest of health system behaviors was actually a reality. We're probably not going to get that report, but we do know the CEO has resigned.
Definitely not going to get that report.
Since the CEO resigned, we're talking about a man making $1.5 million a year. $1.5 million, the highest paid individual at UVA, the guy who quit.
Yeah.
Since that man resigns, we then have Mr. Scully resign. Mr. Scully, cite his position for the viewers and listeners.
He's a lawyer who's on the UVA Board of Health.
He's on the Board of Health. He's on the board for UVA Health. Mm-hmm. He resigns in protest to Craig Kent's treatment.
Yeah.
He hasn't read the investigative report either, but he says how Craig Kent was treated was so BS, I'm going to quit as a result. And on his way out the door, he says there's somebody on the Board of Visitors of UVA that's puppeteering this entire fiasco.
He also says the Williams and Connolly investigators looking into this were young attorneys with no experience in healthcare.
Which I push back on that because we're talking attorneys in their 40s that were educated at Ivy League universities, some with ties to the Hillary Clinton political.
He also said it was clear and obvious that they were being directed to a preconceived outcome.
Right.
Which also seems odd.
Well, for this guy to make that comment, he's on the board of UVA Health saying the investigative team, the third-party law firm that investigated all these terrible allegations, he's basically saying they came in with an agenda.
Yeah.
It was a hatchet job investigation. That right there reeks of gross misconduct as well.
Yeah, you're basically accusing the lawyers who are investigating, not to mention their firm, on not even doing their job and just doing a hatchet job based on whatever somebody wants them to
what
write.
A talented Board of Visitors member did. And then in the wake of that, a fake phony hoax letter is circulating. Mm-hmm. And this fake phony hoax letter is all about the dean of the medical school. And this fake phony hoax letter is so real that the interim head of UVA Health and the interim UVA provost have to issue a statement saying that this fake phony hoax letter is not actually real.
Yeah.
Then there's a corresponding fake phony video about the dean of the medical school saying that she's resigned as well.
I'm curious if it is an AI video.
What the hell is going on here, viewers and listeners? Do you hear what I'm saying? All of this is happening at the exact same time that the U.S. Department of Education is investigating UVA about anti-Semitic discrimination and harassment, basically saying Jewish students are unsafe or are facing...
They're not getting the support they need from the school,
yeah.
Certainly.
And all this at the same time is happening where federal funding is being threatened. An investigative report about the triple murder of UVA football players is not being released, to the point of one of the mothers is begging to find out what happened to her kid. And not even a year removed from when students were pepper sprayed by the state police in militia fashion. How do you talk about a basketball head coaching search?
Not to mention that they're currently trying to find ways to continue the DEI initiatives they started but after saying that they're getting rid of the DEI initiatives.
Do you want to set the table for that one for the viewers and listeners as you rotate the lower third in? Get ready for this one.
I mean, this
is insane. You can't make this up. This is a movie script, ladies and gentlemen.
This is
at least a Netflix documentary.
No doubt. Let's see. This is a lot of this comes from James Bacon, who's wonderful on JeffersonCouncil.org, and he talks about the fact that they are UVA Board of Visitors is scheduled to have an open session on Friday. This would have been a week or so ago, about admissions policies, because they're being told to cut the DEI stuff, which means they're having to rethink things. They are thinking about bringing back, looking at test scores. One of the things that they took out of the system during COVID, and it's Bacon's guess that they may be looking for workarounds, and he says. Eric Ramirez Weaver, the Faculty Senate DEI Committee, explored how UVA could comply legally with the Supreme Court ruling and executive orders, but achieve the same aims through workarounds. And this is from Weaver, Ramirez Weaver. I'm speaking to the DEI committee. Some of the issues that surfaced prior to the recent executive orders involved how new recruiting techniques can be done post the Harvard decision, which now is even more important in light of executive orders on DEI, and in fact the Dear Colleagues letter from the Department of Ed. I think a very straightforward thing we need to know is how the programs that Greg Roberts, Director of Admissions, implemented, which were workarounds in order to promote a diverse class, are now requiring even more rethinking and reconsideration, and what, if anything, are the strategies going forward?
So here's what's basically happening, succinctly. Federal funding is being used as leverage to eradicate diversity, equity, and inclusion protocols everywhere. And UVA, on paper, is following what Glenn Youngkin has been touting on national TV over the last 48 hours. Mm-hmm. That UVA and DEI are a thing of the past.
But behind the scenes, some speculate, including the Jefferson Council, that DEI is front and center. And just going underground.
And is just going through workarounds or other clandestine, off-the-record mythologies. What happened to transparency and being straightforward, being what you see is what you get and above ground?
What happened to UVA's honor code?
Perfect, Judah. What happened to honor?
Or does that only apply to students?
Or does that only apply to students in fraternity life and Greek life? How is all this happening at the same time? How is the trust and the credibility of UVA Health being eroded and destroyed at the very same time the trust and credibility and the safety provided to Jewish students is eroding at the same time? Mm-hmm. At the same time that an investigative report, triple homicide, is not being released. At the same time that diversity, equity, and inclusion is either going underground or is being repositioned and rebranded. Yeah. It's all happening at the same time. I am no conspiracy theorist. The last person you will find to be a conspiracy theorist is me. But I ask a genuine question at the flagship university in the oldest commonwealth. Is it the oldest commonwealth in the country?
Oldest Commonwealth University or oldest?
What is the oldest state in the United States? Is it Virginia? Is that Delaware, 1787, first, December 7th, then Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, Connecticut. Okay, so we're talking 10th according to this website that I'm on. States of admission. The flagship university of the Commonwealth of Virginia. How is all this happening at the same time? Is this a coordinated attack of some kind? Then you got Tony Bennett's surprise resignation. You got a football program that's struggling, that has the least amount of wins over the last 3 years of any of the power conferences. You got a basketball head coach that's they're trying to hire. Carla Williams writes a letter to alumni and donors on Monday saying, bear with me, I'm going to have this hire done before the end of the spring portal period. The period starts on the 24th of March. John Blair leaves this comment. How about a timeline of events? Since December 2021, we've had the following. Bronco Mendenhall resigning out of the blue as the football coach at UVA. Tony Bennett resigning out of the blue. The sign on the UVA lawn, F-U-C-K UVA on the lawn door, that Bert Ellis tried to eradicate himself. Yep. I'm no longer using his nickname on this program here after being reprimanded by the Board of Visitors for monikering what I think is the most talented board, according to Scully, who's resigned, the most talented board member, according to Scully. That's who I think he's alluding to. We nicknamed him a sharp cutting object, which we're not going to reference. That happened. You had the pro-Palestine pepper spraying protest happen. The investigation and resignations with UVA Health. Mm-hmm. The triple homicide. The hazing investigations at UVA fraternity and Greek life. You had the Sienna Bryant trying to kick somebody out of school for a comment she made to a barricade truck. Hearsay. John's right. We forgot about the UVA guide service.
Yeah.
And the tours that they're no longer allowed to offer because of their conjecture or how they were positioning the university's history to prospective students and their parents.
Yeah.
Now anti-Semitism?
I mean, that's not new.
Anti-Semitism wasn't there when I was there.
No, I don't mean it's that old. I just mean that we've been hearing about this for quite a while.
Neil Williamson, president of the Free Enterprise Forum. For what it's worth, Commonwealth is a term used by 4 of the 50 states in the U.S. of A. And their full official long-form state names, Kentucky, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, are commonwealths. And he also highlights, for what it's worth, every Board of Visitors majority represents the current governor by the governor's 3rd year or his or her term. The governor's predecessor's appointments has the majority the first 2 years of the new governor's terms. He's right. Mm-hmm. We have seen Youngkin's appointments, 13 on the board now, having significant influence of late. Now, here's the really tough question to ask, because for all accounts, he's a very nice and likable guy. How does this impact Jim Ryan? All this is happening under his presidency. All of it. Mm-hmm. In a very short period of time. Are the Youngkin appointments, 13 on the BOV, going to basically listen to the last 5 minutes of the I Love CVille show and say, all this has happened while you've been the president? What is going on here?
I mean, if they haven't been asking that yet, then I would guess that they are more aligned with Ryan than we know.
Or do they need the proof of performance to make the strategic behind the scenes maneuvering. This is if I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but is this a coordinated effort for a bigger pictured agenda? I sincerely am asking that question.
It feels to me more like there's just a lot of buck passing going on.
Somebody created a phony resignation letter for the dean of the medical school and a phony resignation video for the dean of the medical school. That was so true to form that the interim provost and the interim head of the health system had to issue a statement to media saying this is fake.
Well, yeah. Wouldn't they anyways, no matter how true to form it is?
Would they?
Somebody's got to.
And why hasn't Kibbe offered comments?
She's probably told not to. Keep your head down.
Unbelievable. This is a Netflix documentary. This is some of the most tumultuous 24 to 36 months that I have seen a university have in an extremely long period of time.
Yeah.
Absolutely unbelievable. Let us know your thoughts. And it puts the rest of the news that we're going to talk about in perspective, like the city funding a low-barrier shelter at the Salvation Army site on Cherry Avenue. Is it fair that Fifeville is going to have the 2 shelters, Judah?
That's a good question.
Is it fair to Fifeville residents?
Is it fair that this is next to a park?
Is it fair that this is next to a playground as you're rotating lower thirds on screen? Is it fair that this is in a historically marginalized neighborhood? The low barrier shelter is not, whether you're honest with yourself or not, I want to ask you this question. Would you want a low barrier shelter that offers shelter to convicted sex offenders, including sex offenders that have been convicted of child sex crimes?
Potentially.
Drug addicts, alcoholics, and others with criminal history. A lax checking of IDs and licenses at the door.
That's what low shelter is.
That's what a low barrier shelter is. Would you want that next to your house?
I mean, I think it's fairly safe to say that nobody in this city is going to be a YIMBY in this regard.
This is not about YIMBY or NIMBY.
I know.
This is about, right, I agree with you. This is about the safety of where you live.
But that being said...
And now both shelters are in Fifeville.
That being said, where do you find a place in Charlottesville that's not a neighborhood?
It's a great question.
I mean, it's got to go somewhere. That's not me saying that it should be in Fifeville. That's just saying that no matter where you put it, somebody's going to be angry. Some people have made some wonderful points about the fact that we're just kind of going for this building because the Salvation Army offered it when we could be building one somewhere. There's also the question of who's going to run it because... They
still don't have an operator. The city's saying it's going to fund it, but they don't have an operator.
And when it was originally stated that it could be used, they did not realize that the Salvation Army does not permit their Salvation Army locals to run something like this. So it would need other work. Then other people have brought up the fact that this is a resource as a place for buying, secondhand clothing. If this goes, it's not just a matter of bringing in people that the neighborhood doesn't want around their kids at a park. It's also a matter of losing that resource.
The city will offer the Salvation Army, if this moves forward as a low barrier shelter, a check to help the Salvation Army offset the loss in revenue from operating a thrift store. And has said that in City Manager Sam Sanders' report.
But that doesn't help anybody that actually wanted to use the thrift store.
But I'm torn on this, and here's why I'm torn on this. And then Carol Thorpe, I'll get to your comments here. I'm torn on this because I think this low barrier shelter on Cherry Avenue in the Salvation Army location will help the downtown mall tremendously.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Anywhere
I think a large population of downtown's houseless population is going to end up on Cherry Avenue at this low barrier shelter. I very much believe that.
Yeah.
And it's on a bus line. It's still in the city. It's within walking distance of a lot of important destinations for the houseless population. But I think it's important to highlight the following. Point number one. There's going to be 2 shelters in the Fifield neighborhood. Is that fair to the Fifield neighborhood? Point number 2, there's going to be 2 shelters in the Fifield neighborhood, which is historically black and historically marginalized. Point number 3 that we need to consider. If you lived in the Fifield or Prospect neighborhoods, would you want a low barrier shelter that offers shelter to folks that have been potentially convicted of sex crimes, child sex crimes, and other criminal behavior, alcoholics and drug addicts, folks that may not have licenses or identifications on their person? Would you want this type of shelter next to where you are sleeping, your wife is sleeping, your husband are sleeping, your parents are sleeping, or your children are sleeping? And that's a big point. And folks saying, I don't want this shelter next to my house or my neighborhood, that doesn't make those people less of people. That doesn't make those folks not in my backyards or NIMBYs. That doesn't mean those people lack empathy. It just means that those people are concerned about their safety and their children's safety. And every parent that's a fit parent or a caring parent or a competent parent should be concerned about their children's safety and what offering shelter to dozens, if not nearly 100 people next to their house could jeopardize safety, would do from a safety jeopardization. Mm-hmm. And that's just being a reasonable parent and human. Now, it's important to emphasize this. There is still no operator for the shelter.
It's also not built.
And it's also, it is built. They have the building there. It's just going to needs to be outfitted. The inside needs to, granted, there's going to be remodeling costs and a runway for remodeling. But I want you to understand this. In this stretch of Cherry Avenue, we're having a grocery store chatted about, speculated about, talked about, crystal balled. Right now, a co-op of neighborhood residents is going to be the operator of the grocery store. We'll see if that materializes. And that's going to happen right across the street, this co-op grocery store that somehow is going to sell healthy foods and quality beef and meat and fresh vegetables and produce and fruit at reasonable prices. I don't see how that's going to happen. That's going to happen across the street from a city-funded low-barrier shelter where some of the most purgatory residing residents would seek refuge. You think purgatory residing residents is offering them too much empathy?
I'm not sure what it means.
Residents that have criminal history, would you say that's not purgatory?
No.
Well, you would say that's more southward on the afterlife spectrum?
I'm not sure why we're talking about the afterlife.
Should I just call them criminals?
If you want to. I just didn't know what you meant by...
Who are the folks that are going to seek refuge in the low barrier shelter?
I mean, some of them may be have been accused of sexual assault. Others just don't have IDs. I mean, there's going to be a fairly broad cross section, I would imagine.
Would you see the folks that would be seeking shelter in the low barrier? What were their commonalities that are different from the high barrier shelter participants?
I mean,
Criminal history,
I would say it's
addiction,
more likely
drugs and alcohol, and
men.
identification on their person. IDs on their person, licenses.
Yeah,
That's the difference.
more likely men.
This is just, it's wild to me. It's wild how Cherry Avenue is being reimagined in real time right before us. It's wild to me. Absolutely wild. And is it for the best? Is it sincerely for the best?
It's impossible to say.
Carol Thorpe of Jack Jewett District. And yet, with all the scandals that you talk about and listed at the University of Virginia, applications have been breaking the previous year's record year after year. It's not affecting enrollment. So does anyone truly care? It's a great question. We got some enrollment numbers that just came out. The University of Virginia is going to maintain undergraduate enrollment at the same level, Sean Tubbs reports, for the next 7 years, seven years at around 17,000 undergraduate students. However, the University of Virginia has highlighted that it will increase graduate school enrollment. Jude, if you had a ballpark right now, how many undergraduate students and graduate students were at the University of Virginia in 2024? What would your ballpark be? Undergraduate UVA students and graduate UVA students. What would you ballpark that at?
I don't know.
It's a great
50,
trivia
50,
question.
50,000?
I have an exact number for the viewers and listeners, but I'm just looking for a ballpark for you.
I guessed 50,000.
Okay, that's nowhere close to the ballpark. Not even.
I have no idea.
Undergraduate students at UVA in 2024, 17,469. Graduate students at the University of Virginia in the fall of 2024, 4,957. A total of 22,426. 22,426. By 2031, graduate students will increase to 5,400. So they're basically going to add about 450 graduate students by 2031, but they're saying as of now, UVA, that undergraduate students will stay the same, around 17,469. So if you were at your cocktail party this weekend, we got a cocktail party. If you're at a cocktail party this weekend and someone asked you, or you asked them, how many undergraduate students are at UVA in the fall of 2024, you can say 17,469. How many graduate students in the fall of 2024? 4,957. How many total students at the University of Virginia in the fall of 2024? 22,426, ladies and gentlemen. All right, a couple other items out of the notebook. Mudhouse on 10th Street closes next to Guajiros.
Possibly.
No, it's closed.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
closed. It's closed. What do you make of this story? Do you chalk this story up to no parking? Is that what you chalk this up? Do you chalk this story up to the neighborhood business that's going to get walkability and bikeability does not have enough customer demand to survive? Mudhouse is an established local brand, and it is closed on 10th Street next to Guajiros, next to where Peloton Station used to be. Is this purely a parking play or lack thereof?
It's tough to say. It very well could be. But we don't have any clues from the business.
I chalk it up to parking. I chalk it up to parking. I chalk it up to this fantasy that we live in, that it's going to be this neighborhood shop where people can walk to it and they can bike to it and they can meet after having their breakfast or having after church or after work. I just find it a fairy tale. We are still in a car-dominant and car-centric Charlottesville. And you look at what Shannon Worrell has built on 10th Street, and I applaud her. The penthouses are great. Those apartments she's built. The well room is awesome. The Peloton Station Guajiros layout was beautiful. It was sexy. It was just great. But look at everything that's gone out of business over there. Was that where Bower Bird was, the bakery? Is that where that was? Do you know?
I don't know.
Let's see if I can do a quick Google search. That was where Bower Bird Bake Shop was. Mudhouse now closes. One of my favorite places ever. Peloton closed. I used to go into Peloton, my cheers, and I'd see Devin Barchowatski drinking cold beers at the bar. Curtis behind the bar. A boatload of people I knew watching the game. Eddie was there. Nick was there. Mike was there. It closed. Wasn't nothing but love for Harvey and his brothers at Guajiros. I hope they crush it. Great food. But you've had some turnover here, folks. Do you just chalk this up to parking? And if you do chalk this up to parking, is that a headwind for the new zoning ordinance and all these folks that say we need to get businesses and neighborhoods? The foot traffic will support it. Question for the viewer and listener. 2 other items I want to get out of the notebook. First, I want to highlight that there's no show tomorrow. UVA basketball plays at 12 p.m. against Georgia Tech in the ACC tournament. No show tomorrow. We are back in the saddle on Thursday, where we're going to interview the founder of Coco's Adventure Factory, coming to Seminole Square Shopping Center in early 2026. 34,000 square feet of trampolines, rope courses, bumper cars, zip lines, Ninja Warrior course, a drop tower, LED slides, birthday party rooms for renting, an arcade, ball pits, and a parents' lounge, cafe. Dr. Daniel Halpert will join us on Thursday in studio. I want to highlight the fact that Carla Williams, the athletic director of Virginia, wrote a letter to alumni and donors saying we're going to hire a basketball coach by the end of the spring portal period. The portal period opens on March 24th. There is never a lack of content in this town. It's something in the water in this town, especially of the University of Virginia of late. Anything you want to close with, Judah Wickower?
Enjoy the incredibly nice weather we're currently feeling. I can't wait to get outside.
There you go. I second that. Judah Wickower, Jerry Miller, the Tuesday edition of the show. Thank you for joining us.